What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Tattoo Critiques. This is the show where we break down your tattoos, whether you're an artist, collector, or just a viewer. Regardless, we're here for you. This week we are critiquing artist tattoos, and boy, we've got some doozies. So stick around. Once again, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here and you like tattoos and tattoo-related content, please consider subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed and you've been here a while, what are you doing with your life? Anyway, let's check out these tattoos. All right, the first tattoo sent in is from David Vargas. And David, you sent in this, what appears to be a fallen angel. But to be honest, it was very hard for me to tell what that was upon first glance. I think the idea for this tattoo is cool, but I think maybe the perspective that you chose might not be the best for this particular piece, as it's very hard to read exactly what's going on. I think it's just very hard to distinguish the head from those feathers, where it begins and where it ends. Since the back of his head is very dark with that hair, I probably would have went with a lighter tone for those feathers. That way it sets itself off from his head. And where the wing comes off of the back, it really doesn't look like a wing. So again, at first glance, this really doesn't come across as a fallen angel. There just isn't a lot of clear separation happening in this tattoo to make it readable. My biggest suggestion for you would be to learn how to utilize those lighter shades, because right now it just seems like there's a lot of darker tones happening and not really any of those lighter ones to help carry it along. And if you look over to the right, he's got the arm of the Pillsbury Doughboy. And his back leg also kind of gets mixed up with his right arm. Also, another concern I have about this tattoo is his right leg. If we were to carry that top line of his thigh over that wing, that thigh would be quite large. And in comparison to that left one, they just look like two different legs. But even when it comes to that left leg, if we look up to his calf, if we carry that line down, that's gonna be one meaty calf. You really have to watch those angles and know where they'll end up, because I think that's your biggest fault here. I would definitely practice drawing anatomy and working on light and shadows. The more you practice those on paper, the more it's gonna show in your tattoos. But thank you so much, David, for sending that in and letting me talk about it. All right, the next tattoo sent in is from Nick out of Germany. And Nick, you did this tattoo on yourself and you'd like to know what you could do to make it better. Anyone got a bone saw? First and foremost, I would say stop tattooing yourself because you're not on the right track. Secondly, hopefully you're not doing these type of tattoos on other people. Sorry to be a bit blunt, but there are just a lot of bad things happening in this tattoo. First of all, that massive blowout in the skull's teeth. Boy, I haven't seen one of those in a long time. Not this big anyway. And it's obviously not just the teeth, it's around the eye, it's around the letters. It's kind of happening everywhere in this piece. To me, this looks like you just don't know what you're doing and you're trying to just get something to stick. When we bring our eyes up to the spider web, we can really tell that that skin is raised and scarred. And it doesn't really look like any of the lines are any better. This thing looks so scarred that I'd bet a blind person could read it. And although I'm sure our viewers love seeing these kinds of tattoos, I would much rather see you lay down a solid tattoo on fake skin before you put it on yourself or someone else. So Nicklas, my one and only serious critique for you would be to find an actual apprenticeship. You're not really helping yourself out in this situation at all, especially if you'd like to grow as an artist. I know it's exciting to tattoo. I had that same feeling, and other people have that same exact feeling. But if you really do have the passion for tattooing, you'll find an apprenticeship. The more time you put into these bad habits, the harder it is to dig yourself out. So just draw on paper and build a good art portfolio. Take that with you to a tattoo shop and try to get an apprenticeship there. And as the saying goes, if you don't succeed, try again. Because again, if you do have that passion, you will make it happen. But thank you so much, Nick, for sending it in and letting me talk about it. All right, the next tattoo is sent in from holy sh. All right, the next tattoo sent in is from Scotty, and Scotty. All right, Scotty, where do we begin? I'm sorry, I'm at a loss for words right now. This doesn't happen this much on this channel. Well, I thought the last tattoo was bad, but yeah, I wish you were here too so I could show you how to pull a line. So first off, everything that I said about the last tattoo can apply to this tattoo as well. So Scotty, if you don't mind, rewind to the last critique and start there. Don't worry, we'll wait. Okay, you're all caught up? Good. What did you use to tattoo this? I'd be very curious to know. Was it a crayon? Maybe a cat claw? I don't know, a shovel? There's not one single line in this entire tattoo that I would call consistent, because had you used a proper machine with an actual setup, I know this wouldn't look like this. And even if you had the cheapest rotary machine from Amazon, you could make a better line than any line that you have here. I'm not trying to be mean, I want you to be better. So let's do this. Put your machine away and get out the drawing pad. Don't even practice on fake skins. I want you to be practicing actual artwork. I want your artwork to be as solid as possible before putting it on skin, even if it's your own. Because I said before, you are only creating bad habits that are going to be very hard to get out of. Trust me, I know all about this. You should be able to make a page full of designs that have several straight lines and them all be pretty close to perfect. Another thing I noticed is you're lacking discipline when it comes to being consistent in where you're working. And what I mean by that is, I see spots of green, I see spots of red, I see incomplete areas of red. You went from red to green, you filled in one shoe, the other shoe's not filled in. So to me, it just looks like you're going all over the place when you're applying this thing. Try to finish just the rows and then move on from there. Or at least finish all the red in the rows and then move on. Even better, work on designing just roses, because I think you bit off a bit more than you could chew when it comes to this specific design. Honestly, there's not a lot more I could say, especially when it comes to technical application, because you have a long way to go. As I said before, just be patient and focus on nailing down your designs. Get them as close to perfect as possible before transferring that over to fake skin. And even further, real skin. But Scotty, thank you so much for sending that over and allowing me to discuss it. All right, the next tattoo is sent in from Paulina out of the UK. And Paulina, you sent in this Slim Shady tattoo. And Paulina, you sent in this Marshall Mathers tattoo. And Paulina, you sent in this Eminem tattoo. Will the real Slim Shady please stand up? All right, right off the bat, this is a pretty cool looking tattoo, and I do like the soft shading that it has. I did pull up the reference just so I could compare, because I know this is a pretty common portrait. You managed to put a couple of the facial blemishes that Eminem has on his face on the tattoo as well, and I think that's pretty cool, like the little moles and spots here and there. The hair looks fine and the face looks fine, but I do have an issue when it comes to this shirt. It just looks a bit fake. And I know that's probably because the reference ran out and you kind of had to make it up on your own, but just how it reads, it's coming off a bit too flat and straight across. I probably would have given it just a little bit of a dip just to make it look like the collar of a shirt. The top of the reference looks like it got cut off as well, so you kind of finished off the top of the hair. Granted, it wasn't much, but it does look like you did a good job there. When it comes to the hair, it does look like you lifted it up a bit on his left-hand side, whereas if you look at the reference, it's kind of flat across. I do wish the nostrils were a bit darker. Again, if we look at the reference, we notice those nostrils are pretty black and very dark. And if we go over to the tattoo, they're kind of just lighter than where the reference sits. One other thing that bothers me just a little bit is the lack of hard edges that your tattoo has compared to the reference. And I'm mostly talking about the neck. On either side of the neck on the tattoo, it just seems a bit soft. And when we look at the reference, he has those very nice, hard, crisp edges. I am being rather nitpicky, but this is something that I do every day, so I am being hyper aware. I do think you have a lot of the techniques down, but there are little things here and there that I do think you can improve on. You could have used a little extra shading on the forehead, especially at the top, because right now the tattoo where that glare is sitting, it just comes off a bit too harsh. And I do believe his eyes are my favorite part about this tattoo. They look believable, real, and wet. And you can immediately tell that this is the real Slim Shady. So excellent job once again, Paulina. I think you did a great job with this tattoo. And you did send in multiple, and all of them seem to fall right in line with this one. It's just those smaller details, adding those crisp lines where they need to go and making sure they end properly. So good job, Paulina. I think you did an excellent job with this tattoo. Thank you so much for sending it in. And the next tattoo sent in is from Sage out of Florida. Sage, you've mentioned you've only been tattooing for about a week and a half, and you sent in this Pokemon Garfield mashup that you've appropriately titled Gengarfield. And I love the name. Now I must say, I am pretty impressed that this is only your 6th tattoo. My initial thoughts are, you can really tell that you're putting care into this tattoo. Obviously the saturation isn't perfect and the lines aren't perfect, but for you only being on skin for so long, I honestly expected worse. It really just looks like you took your time. First, let's take a look at your line work. Now there are some inconsistencies here and there, but for the most part, you can tell this is something you've practiced before getting on actual skin. You can tell that you're already getting comfortable with a machine, and sometimes that's not the easiest thing to do as a newer artist. So one thing that I would have done personally, that I talk a lot about on this channel, is to play with that depth. Add some extra line weights. Use a nice fat outline for the outer perimeter of this tattoo and use those smaller lines for the inside. It would have really just made it a little more strong. Now when it comes to saturation, what you're trying to do is push that color all the way up to those black outlines. And for the most part, you've done a good job with doing just that. But there are a couple spots here and there that just need to be filled in or tucked a bit tighter to those outlines. One thing that I don't like about this tattoo is the little extra added Pokeball at the bottom of this tattoo. I think you probably added this in here to kind of let the viewers know that it was a Pokemon, but I honestly think that it's unnecessary and doesn't need to be there. It's not really helping anything. And also, shouldn't it be red? I mean, I don't know a whole lot about Pokemon, but come on! Oh, sorry, I just get so heated when people mess with Pokemon. I'm such a big fan. No, I barely know how to pronounce Pokemon. But yeah, again, I probably would have just left that out as it's not really helping anything with this tattoo. Or I probably would have made that Pokeball a bit bigger and made it look like he was coming out of it. And again, made it red. But overall, Sage, I do think you did a great job with this tattoo. I think you're right where you need to be as far as your 6th tattoo goes. Just tighten up those lines and dial in that saturation, and I think you're gonna be okay, kid. Thank you, Sage, for sending that in. Alright, that's going to wrap it up for the critiques this week, but before we go, you know we gotta talk about my favorite tattoo of this episode, which was sent in from Paulina with this Slim Shady micro portrait. It's clear you know what you're doing when it comes to black and white portraits. This thing has some excellent shading. Other than the shirt, it really does look like you took your time and put in the proper care that this thing needed. Even side by side with the reference, this thing's pretty spot on. And as I said before, you can tell exactly who it is with no second guessing. So Paulina, congratulations on being this week's winner and keep up the good work. All right, now before we go, let's not forget to bring up my featured artist of the week, which is Jackson May out of Australia. All right, now you know Jackson's been in the game for quite some time because he's still rocking that Hotmail account. And you can tell, because his work is solid and he really goes the extra mile. He doesn't just take an image off Google and tattoo it, but he works a lot of other creative imagery into his work, really forcing the viewer's eye around the entire tattoo. This type of composition is something that a lot of tattooers struggle with, but not Jackson. This dude's got it down. And when you're talking about color choices and saturation, my guy, these things are bold. So please do yourself a favor and head on over to his page, give him a follow, and let him know I sent you. All right, now you're free to go. After you hit the subscribe button, of course. Don't worry, I'll wait again. Thank you. All right, see y'all next week.